The story begins when a young girl glances up and was astonished as a lion cub fell from above. She was clueless about its origins, but observing its sad expression, Alma felt unable to abandon it in the perilous woods. Consequently, she brought the young lion back to her house. Right when Alma was pulling the door shut, a white wolf holding a pup in its jaws unexpectedly pushed inside and calmly found a spot in the room's corner. Alma was bewildered, yet she gathered her nerve to investigate more closely. It became clear that she recognized this specific white wolf. However, the white wolf showed no signs of aggression. It just gazed at her with a look that appeared to be a plea for assistance. She tried to contact the authorities, yet her phone had no reception. At that moment, a pair of officers from the wildlife agency stopped by inquiring about the young lion. As it happened, the cub's mother was killed by poachers, and the infant lion was purchased by a circus for a large sum. However, while being moved, the aircraft had gone down. It eventually dropped right into Alma's embrace. Alma at first intended to reveal the truth and give back the cub. But upon discovering it was bound for a circus, she instantly shifted her decision and chose to conceal it. Alma was orphaned at a young age, and only a few days prior, her cherished grandfather had also died. Nobody comprehended the anguish of family loss more than her. Upon returning to her house, she observed the white wolf feeding its own pup. Just then, the lion cub ambled toward them. Alma grew apprehensive, worrying the white wolf would push the cub away. To her astonishment, the young lion crept up to the mother wolf and started feeding beside the wolf pup. The white wolf did not prevent this. Observing this touching scene, Alma was profoundly affected and resolved to take both of them in. During the following days, the two young animals forged a strong friendship. They frolicked and rolled about the home carefree. The white wolf came back daily at the scheduled time to nurse them. As days went by, the pair of cubs grew increasingly bonded to her. They trailed her wherever she went. While Alma played the piano, they would venture outdoors to play silently. Yet the instant she paused, they became her small shadows, remaining near her path. After some time, Alma's anticipated piano test finally occurred. Alma's audition was flawless. She secured a position in the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra. Her lifelong aspiration was at last realized, yet Alma found herself unable to be joyful. This was because it signified she wouldn't be able to go back to looking after the two young animals. The young wolf still had its mother providing care, so Alma started searching for a secure location for the lion cub. However, difficulties arose more rapidly than anticipated. One afternoon, as the white wolf was hunting, it was seen by personnel from a wolf preservation facility. And just like that, the white wolf was removed. When Alma got back to the house, the sight that met her eyes left her shocked. The two young creatures had wrecked the home while frantically seeking nourishment. She realized the white wolf was missing. Frantic, she hurried outdoors to look, but regardless of where she searched, the wolf had vanished. She went back inside to give food to the starving cubs. The white wolf's abrupt absence caused Alma to feel powerless. She understood that balancing her new career and looking after the animals simultaneously was impossible. Therefore, Alma reached a difficult conclusion: to give them to the Wildlife Protection Agency, trusting they would be better off there. Perhaps detecting what was forthcoming, the two cubs climbed silently into Alma's bed that evening, holding onto her tightly. Alma's resolve softened. She internally promised that she would not forsake them. Consequently, Alma resigned from her position with the symphony orchestra and started dedicating all her time to their upbringing. With the white wolf absent, the two cubs viewed Alma as their maternal figure. She gave them new identities. The young wolf was named Mozart, and the young lion, Dreamer. Winter came swiftly, covering the whole woods in white. The two animals had matured into big, strong creatures, running and frolicking in the snow. One afternoon, a woman and her child came to the island to gather flowers. When Mozart and Dreamer noticed them, they sprinted toward the visitors rapidly. Alma grew terrified. She ran to intercept them, but she stumbled on a stone and struck her head forcefully on the earth. then lost consciousness. Noticing the sound, Mozart was the first to return. Observing Alma inert on the ground, he became agitated. He pushed her repeatedly, attempting frantically to awaken her. At that moment, Dreamer also appeared. The pair of them moved around Alma, vocalizing. Darkness descended, and they still would not depart from her, protecting her without moving in the frigid night. The following morning, Joe's voice was heard on the radio. They had arranged to communicate every day, but on this day, he had tried calling multiple times without reply. Frightened, he got into his boat and journeyed to the island. Mozart spotted him and produced a long cry. Joe tracked the noise and eventually located Alma on the ground. Yet with the wolf and lion close, he was afraid to get closer. Having no other option, he contacted the authorities. Alma was transported quickly to the hospital. The medical staff informed her that during the icy spring evening, had Mozart and Dreamer not provided warmth, she probably would not have made it. Unfortunately, due to Joe's distress call, Mozart was removed by the conservation group. At that location, he finally met his mother again. Dreamer did not have the same fortune. He was given back to the circus by the authorities. Upon spotting the ringmaster, Alan Dreamer immediately grew distressed, but his destiny could not be altered. Alan informed his son Rafa that to properly break the lion, they needed to instill fear in it. He then struck Dreamer forcefully with a heavy whip. During this time, Alma could only focus on Mozart and Dreamer. She quietly left the hospital and visited the police department to inquire about them. But the police not only dismissed her request, they informed her that housing wild creatures was illegal. With no alternatives remaining, Alma resolved to find them on her own. She quickly contacted Eli, the head of the wolf preservation facility. Eli informed Alma that Mozart was currently thriving. He was back with his mother, and his wild nature was unleashed. Hearing this eased Alma's mind partially, yet she remained extremely concerned about Dreamer. Alma suspected he was returned to the circus, and she promised to check all circuses globally, if necessary, to locate him. On that specific day, the circus convoy traveled past the vicinity of the Wolf Center. Mozart immediately knew Dreamer's cry and called back, signaling his companion. But the procession was heartless and continued on its path. That same evening, Mozart excavated a tunnel under the fencing and fled the conservation facility. Mozart eventually reached the circus location. He promptly began digging once more and snuck into the circus grounds effortlessly. Yet when he got to Dreamer's enclosure, he saw no method to unlock it. Still, Mozart refused to surrender. He located a branch and attempted to utilize it like a crowbar to force the cage. Noticing this, Dreamer quickly rose to assist. The commotion attracted Alan's notice. Alan was confused by Dreamer's behavior, so he unlatched the cage to investigate the situation. At that moment, Mozart jumped forward and toppled Alan. Then he and Dreamer fled. Together again, finally, the two companions happily played and tumbled. They needed to return home. In the meantime, Alma learned from Eli that Mozart had freed Dreamer. Eli requested Alma's assistance in the search effort. Mozart still had his tracking device, allowing them to find his position rapidly. The entire city's police were now looking for Mozart and Dreamer, and Alan showed up in the woods carrying a gun. He quickly noticed Dreamer getting a drink at the river. Alan lifted his weapon and aimed. Mozart responded immediately. Without pause, he rushed toward Alan, but was struck by a sedative dart. A dosage intended for Dreamer might be fatal to Mozart. To prevent more complications, Alan instructed his son Rafa to discard the tracking device, but Rafa covertly concealed it beneath his garments. When they departed, Dreamer hurried back to Mozart's location, crying out in distress. Eli and Alma utilized the tracker's signal to find Alan and Rafa, but Alan refuted the accusation, insisting he discovered it beside the road. After Eli and Alma departed, Rafa secretly met up with them. He guided them to the location where the white wolf had previously been trapped. However, Mozart had already left. Alma was becoming distressed. They needed to locate them ahead of the police. Following Rafa's prompting, Alma had a thought. She would travel through the woods playing the tunes she frequently practiced. As expected, Dreamer recognized the familiar music and emerged. Spotting Alma, he was ecstatic and guided her to the little cabin in the forest. Mozart, ecstatic about the reunion, ran to Alma and showered her with affection. Alma hurried outside and announced to the others she had located Mozart, but at that instant, Alan appeared with his gun, insisting Dreamer be given back. To the astonishment of all, Rafa moved to stand in his father's path. Just then, the authorities arrived. Alma dashed back into the structure and guided Mozart and Dreamer through a secret passage. When the police entered, they were already gone. They exited the tunnel via a hollowed-out tree. On the other side of the lake was Alma's personal island. If they could cross, they would be secure, as the police lacked authority on the island. Alma became increasingly worried. She repeatedly pushed Dreamer and Mozart toward the water as the officers were approaching rapidly. Yet despite this, Dreamer moved deliberately toward the authorities. He intended to create a diversion for Alma and Mozart. Having no alternative, Alma and Mozart were forced to depart ahead of him. When the noise of a shot echoed, Alma feared that Dreamer had been hit. Suppressing her sorrow, she went back to the island with Mozart. But Mozart, not knowing the situation, remained by the water, anticipating Dreamer's arrival. At that moment, a sound came from the nearby foliage. They peered into the darkness and observed a recognizable shape emerging from the gloom. It was Dreamer. He had evaded the authorities. Mozart rushed to Dreamer, overcome with happiness. Ultimately, the wolf and the lion remained together always, maturing in freedom and happiness.